There's a moment you never talk about. The moment when your mind is screaming, walk away, but your heart refuses to move. You know they're not good for you. You know this story only ends in pain. You know holding on is only breaking you more. And yet, something in you is still hoping, still waiting. You replay the same memories, rewrite the same endings, and convince yourself that maybe, somehow, this time, it will hurt less. Why? Why do we cling to people, memories, and relationships long after they've already ended? This is the truth no one wants to confront. Sometimes we don't stay because of love. We stay because we're terrified of what comes after. Today, we're diving into the real psychological and emotional reasons why you still can't let go, even when every part of you knows you should. One of the hardest truths to accept is that you're not struggling to let go of the person you had. You're struggling to let go of the person you hoped they would become. You didn't fall in love with the relationship as it actually was. You fell in love with the moments that felt magical, the tiny signs that made you believe change was coming, and the potential that kept you holding on long after the reality stopped matching your hope. You built a future with them in your mind, piece by piece, until that imagined world felt more real than the one you were actually living in. And so, when it's time to move on, you're not just grieving the end of a relationship. You're grieving the loss of a story that never fully happened, a version of them that never consistently showed up, and a version of yourself that believed you could make it work if you just stayed a little longer. That dream became an emotional home for you, and letting it go can feel like tearing down a place where you thought your heart would finally rest. What most people never realize is that holding on isn't always emotional, it's biological. When someone gives you affection and then suddenly pulls it away, your nervous system is thrown into a cycle of craving, anxiety, and reward that feels like chemistry but is actually survival mode. The inconsistent attention, the hot and cold behavior, the moments of closeness followed by distance create an unpredictable pattern that floods your brain with dopamine spikes each time you get a tiny bit of validation. Your body begins to mistake the anxiety for excitement, the tension for passion, and the emotional roller coaster for love. That's why letting go feels horrible, not because the relationship was healthy, but because your nervous system got addicted to the feeling of maybe this time, even when your mind knows better. You're not holding on because they are right for you. You're holding on because your body learned to associate their inconsistency with connection, and now peace feels unfamiliar, and chaos feels like home. Sometimes the hardest part of letting go has nothing to do with the other person at all. It has everything to do with the version of yourself you became when you were with them. Maybe they made you feel seen in a way no one else did, or maybe their attention made you feel alive, desired, validated, or special. Even if the relationship was painful, there were moments where you felt like the best, most loving, most hopeful version of yourself, and losing the connection feels like losing that piece of your identity. You're not just holding on to them, you're holding on to the feeling of being chosen, the way your heart opened around them, the person you imagined yourself becoming in that future you created together. Letting go feels terrifying because it forces you to face a question you're not ready to ask. Who am I without this story? Who am I without the role I played in their life? And the truth is, you're not scared of losing them. You're scared of losing the version of you who believed things could be different, the version of you who still had hope. One of the most painful reasons you can't let go is because the part of you that's still wounded, the younger, softer version inside you, believes that if you can just fix this relationship, you can finally heal every unanswered wound from your past. This inner child is still chasing the apology they never got, the reassurance they never received, the consistency they were never given. and the love that always felt just out of reach. That's why you rehearse conversations in your head. Imagine one last perfect moment, or secretly hope they'll come back and say the words you needed all along. You're not holding on because the relationship deserves another chance. You're holding on because the child inside you is desperate for emotional justice, for a sense of completion, for that one moment where everything finally makes sense. But closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. Closure comes from finally choosing to protect the version of you who was never protected in the first place. One of the deepest reasons you can't let go is because the silence that comes after them feels unbearable, almost louder than the relationship itself. Even when the connection was draining, chaotic, or one-sided, it still filled your days with something: hope, anxiety, anticipation, meaning, distraction. Letting go doesn't just remove the person. It removes the noise you used to hide behind, the routine that shaped your emotional world, and the familiar ache you learned to navigate. Humans don't fear losing people as much as they fear losing certainty, and when you finally step away, you're left face to face with the emptiness you were avoiding, the unanswered questions, the unmet needs, the quiet space where you have to meet yourself without the safety of chaos. So you cling, not because they're right for you, but because the space they leave behind forces you to confront everything you've been running from. And healing begins the moment you realize that emptiness isn't the enemy. It's the doorway to becoming someone you no longer abandon. People who see themselves as strong don't let go easily, because for them, walking away feels like failure. You've survived so much in your life that discomfort became familiar, and endurance became the way you proved your worth. So when a relationship hurts, you don't immediately leave. You tighten your grip. You tell yourself you can handle it, that you've endured worse, that being strong means staying even when it breaks you. But that's not strength. That's self-abandonment dressed up as loyalty. Jung believed that what we admire most in ourselves often becomes our blind spot, and endurance is exactly that. You hold on because you think strength is about carrying more, when real strength is knowing what was never yours to carry in the first place. Letting go doesn't mean you weren't strong enough. It means you finally stopped confusing suffering with love and persistence with self-worth. The truth is, you don't finally let go when the pain becomes unbearable or when the story falls apart. You let go when you slowly begin to remember who you are outside of the person who couldn't love you the way you needed. You let go the moment you realize that your peace is worth more than their potential, that your healing matters more than the history, and that your heart deserves a place where it no longer has to beg to be understood. Letting go isn't an act of strength, it's an act of self-respect, a quiet decision to no longer abandon yourself for someone who was never willing to stay. And the first step is always the smallest one, choosing yourself, even when it feels unfamiliar. If you're ready to let go, comment, "I choose myself." Your words might help someone else feel a little less alone. If this video spoke to you, subscribe, give it a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I really need your help to grow this channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.